Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. Before we introduce our great guest for today, I want to make you aware of the upcoming event you'll want to check out. We've heard so much about professions and challenges in the cybersecurity. Our sponsor, Jacob Engineering, is having hiring on November 2018. The show contains a long list of open positions in some of the top cyber agencies. If you are new to the industry or just interested in maybe making a transition and seeing what's out there, you don't want to miss this event. November 21st, 2019. For more details, look at our site, newscyberfrontier.com. Now let's join the conversation with our great guest for today.
Welcome everyone back to the New Cyber Frontier. I am Sean Murray, the host of today's edition at the New Cyber Frontier. And today we'd like to welcome Stephen Trainer, Cyber Lead for ENSCO Aerospace Sciences and Engineering. He brought with him Chris Deppa, who is a defensive cyber operations SME with ENSCO as well. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you, Sean. It's good to be here. I appreciate you inviting us to New Cyber Frontier, and we're excited at the opportunity to have a discussion about some of the challenges and some of the interesting aspects of our role supporting the Air Force and supporting some commercial clients.
You know, ENSCO's been around for quite a while. Can you give us some background? Give us some of your background and tell us a little bit about ENSCO. What do you guys do? You guys are a pretty big company.
Yeah, we're a decent-sized company. The history of ENSCO goes back 50 years to our original division, which is the rail division. So ENSCO started off doing rail technology. So at heart, ENSCO is an engineering company, and that translates through, and that emerges and shows itself in everything we do. We have four divisions. Our National Security Division tackles a bunch of highly classified government DoD problem sets and works primarily in the Beltway area and upstate New York. We have an Avionics Division, which actually does work with 55, or actually parts and pieces of 55 different military aircraft, doing some very high-end technical work there. I already talked about our rail division, and then we have our Aerospace Sciences and Engineering Division. Our ASE division, as we call it, focuses predominantly on one particular Air Force client right now, and that is the range network. So that's the Space and Missile SMC, Air Force SMC's range network. Of course, that is emerging as a new thing. They're reinventing themselves with what they call SMC 2.0. So that's a challenge to be on the kind of at a jog as they re-emerge with the Space Force and all the different challenges that space has in DoD. So it's exciting times being a cyber teammate to the Air Force as they figure out what this is going to look like and how they're going to address future challenges. Our division is about 100 people. ENSCO's about, as I said, 50 years old with 640 people. Our division has 140 folks on this contract, about 100 ENSCO. We have some great teammates that bring a lot to the table as well. And together, our cyber team working for Air Force as an SCNI, Systems Engineering and Integration contract, has about 30 teammates on it right now. And we run the gambit from risk management framework, doing accreditation work, to cyber engineering. We have ISIs, information system security engineers that are on the ground, that are sitting side by side with the Air Force, helping them solve their technical problems.
Also, you guys are in a lot of different spaces out there, you know, and ENSCO's been around for a super long time. I know I did some research on your company a while back, everything from wind tunnels to a lot of engineering and solving problems for large companies, for the government. You know, lots of great contributions that are out there. I'd like to take a break right now and hear from our sponsor. I'm Sean Murray, host of today's edition of the New Cyber Frontier. We're here with Stephen Trainer and Chris Deppa from ENSCO.
Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
Welcome back. I am Sean Murray, host of today's edition of the New Cyber Frontier. Today's edition, we welcome Stephen Traynor and Chris Deppa from ENSCO ASE. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks, Sean.
So, Chris, you and Stephen have a lot of government and military experience. How has that helped you with your transition to the commercial space with ENSCO?
It's been an interesting ride. I actually started in the commercial sector before trying to do a tour of duty in the government for about 9 years. It was an easy transition back for me, but overall interviewing on the commercial side again was pretty interesting endeavor for a government guy, trying to go explain to them no, I'm just able to go do these things at an accelerated rate. Just sitting there giving them the experience within my time in the government, I ran a computer emergency response team doing insider threat hunt. I did 8,000 incident investigations and trying to go explain that to the commercial side of the house, where in some cases they don't have a SOC. Some of them feel overwhelmed. Lots of conversations I was having and with those individuals are like, but can you write policy? I'm like, yes, that's what I would be delivering to you in short order. Let's get into the more meat of things. So it was a quite interesting transition. Again, government affords the ability, obviously with government funding, to learn a lot of things in a much quicker rate than probably some commercial partners would. I know probably the hacker community in some cases on the commercial side are screaming out because they're sitting in SOCs, but it's probably the small few that are actually in that environment, and they're in much smaller teams. I had a team, fortunately, that was 38 strong. So we had lots of different background from FBI, CIA, NSA, and then commercial sector as well. So bringing all that collaboration together and being able to manage that and bringing that back to the commercial environment, I think benefits greater than most people would expect, and it's really hard to get those things out and those topics when just interviewing. They don't generally ask you those questions, and you kind of have to steer them to that direction. So it was an interesting transition, but again, I was ready to go do it. Unfortunately, Stephen gave me a call and gave me the opportunity. So,
well, that's great. Stephen, I'm familiar with a lot of your team. I've worked personally with a lot of the folks that are on your team, and boy, what a team you've got. You're retired Army and a cyber guy, leadership, warfighter. You've sped and chewed sand in the desert, and you've got a lot of experience of your own. How does that help you in your new role over at ENSCO?
Hey, thanks for that question. I think having that military background, having that Army, 29 years in the Army taught me a lot. And I didn't know anything about cyber before I came to the Army because I came as a kid. But as Chris said, you get exposure to a lot of information, to the latest and greatest threats, to the latest and greatest techniques. Most of the modern technology for the last century in America has started with government funding, with the DoD, military research. The military spends a lot of money, and the commercial sector that spends a lot of money on behalf of the government to modernize, to better equip, to better field, to have the latest and greatest, because that's what we want our warfighters to have.
Sure.
So, and it also taught me a lot about leadership. It taught me in my last two roles, I was leading teams about the same size of the team I have now, and that helped equip me to understand that it's a wide range. Cyber is, I like to tell people, is an inch deep and a mile wide to me, and I'm not a very deep guy with experience in the uber most technical aspects of it, but it takes the smartest guys I know that I try to attract to our team and try to get them on ENSCO or with ENSCO. We need the RMF practitioners. We need the cybersecurity engineers. We need the latest and greatest cyber threat hunters on the team, because the military doesn't always, and as a DoD contractor now predominantly, they don't always have what they need, and so they turn around and look at the contractor to bring that to the table. So as an SENI, we can do that. And circling back to your question, I think having that experience in the Army, for me, 29 years, and then with a missile defense agency, integrated missile defense as a J6, leading a totally different, 30 different skill sets and applying them to a problem on behalf of the Air Force in this particular SENI contract, and then taking those same skill sets and taking them back to commercial, and we'll talk more about that probably. But I think it lends itself well. I wouldn't be the person I wouldn't be able to be here today. They wouldn't have hired me if I didn't have that experience and hadn't done that for U.S. Stratcom and integrated missile defense previously. I think it's been a fun transition. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. I really enjoy the challenge of leading guys who are smarter than me. And that's what I jokingly tell people that, but it's really the truth. When I got to NSCO, we had a team of about 13, and the Air Force was trying to rapidly increase. And so identifying the skill sets we needed, identifying leaders within the cyber industry, and contacting them, cold calling them and saying, hey, I need what you offer. I need what you do right now for the government or for a different company. I need you on my team. Are you interested in transitioning? And in many cases, they were, and I still have a Rolodex full of folks who will call in the future. But trying to attract really sharp people in the industry, and then having them leverage their knowledge and what they previously did for the government or for commercial against this Air Force problem set that we're trying to solve right now has been a fun challenge, and it keeps my brain occupied, and it's a great feeling to have success on behalf of our Air Force client and for the company.
There's some great perspectives there. We talk about a leadership. So, Chris, you're in a government position where you're in a large team. So you're in a leadership role, but you're also highly technical. One of the best bosses I ever had was a senior government guy who was a mechanical engineer. And he didn't know anything about cyber, but he knew how to lead, and he knew how to provide top cover for me and my team. And so he let us do what we needed to. We knew what our constraints were in those perimeters. So, but you also hit on the skill sets, right? When you talk about cybersecurity, an inch deep, a mile wide, I think sometimes maybe 100 miles wide. Absolutely. We look at cybersecurity, there's so many different disciplines. Cybersecurity isn't just one thing. There's so many different disciplines, and you hit on some of those. So from a technical perspective, let me talk to you first, Chris. From a skill sets perspective, how do you today find the right people with the right skill sets, the right trade craft, hunt analysts, pen testers, red teamers, blue teamers, they're different skill sets, and you got to pull those resources together, and they're not easy to find. So in some instances, they're a unicorn. How do you find those people today in the role that you're in, not being government?
That's a great question. As you're aware, we hit that 3 million job vacancy in the cyber market globally, I think 3 to 5 years ahead of time. So in a lot of cases, I'm sitting down with Stephen here and going, okay, what kind of junior people can we bring in? So from that perspective, what I'm looking at, because when you look at a junior person's resume, they all say the same thing. I've got coding, I've done some databasing, et cetera. And ultimately, I'm looking for the person that has a similar background to me. I started in the commercial world working through college. I worked for big companies like Sun Microsystems, Lockheed Martin, IBM, just kind of trying to cut my teeth in general IT and getting that knowledge of the systems that I would eventually go on to defend. So I'm really looking for that that person that's got a general basis. There's a lot of resumes that I've looked at today where, yeah, I have cybersecurity background, but I don't know anything else. And that becomes a big problem when we're looking at engineering. So from that perspective, I'm looking for that well-rounded base. We do have an intern that we're working with right now, and 5 minutes into the door, I was like, this is a person, we need to hire this person. She's just generally intuitive. She asks those questions. So for anybody out there that's a junior analyst that's looking for a job, that's where I would start. From the intermediate to the advanced guys, I'm really looking for people that have a wide range of skill sets, and then in some cases, obviously super focused. Like when I want a forensics analyst to do forensics work. And literally from the definition of digital forensics, I want a person that understands when they sit down how to do chain of custody, how to go deep dive into artifacts. If I'm looking for a threat hunter, I want them to have SIEM experience and know how to go configure all that information and be able to tell me a story of how they walk through incident response. These are very unique skill sets, right? Again, we had 30 some odd people out at my previous job, and 5 of them were responsible for really looking at what threats might be hitting our boundary at any given time. Okay, well that only translates to X percentage. So if I would lose one of those guys, it could take me a year to find someone of that experience again. So I think it's been really, I would say to any CIO, CISO that's out there, like you need to start looking at people and really bringing them at the ground floor, get them under these senior guys so we can expand the workforce. As you're fully aware, we could probably cut all the college degrees today, switch them to cybersecurity, and we would still have this deficit for the next 10 years. So when you find these people, take care of them.
Nurture and feed them. Great point.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to that. This is Sean Murray, host of today's edition for the New Cyber Frontier. We're in the studio today with Stephen Trainer, cyber lead for ENSCO Aerospace Sciences and Engineering, and Chris Depp, who's a defensive cyber operations SME. We're going to take a break for our sponsor. Murray Security Services are your cybersecurity experts with decades of experience providing professional training services for our clients in various industries. We offer professional training and certification in areas of cybersecurity, safety, health, and environmental services at our academy. Our in-person and online training provides a collaborative environment where students can interact directly with instructors through live chats or in private classrooms. Visit murraysecurityservices.com for more information. Welcome back. I'm Sean Murray, host of today's edition of the New Cyber Frontier. In today's edition, we welcome Stephen Trainer back and Chris Depp, both from ENSCO. Welcome back, gentlemen. You know, Chris, you were talking about the highly technical skill sets and trying to take care and nurture and feed those. I can tell you, having run a SOC, a defensive cyber operations myself, that, you know, if you don't keep the skill sets challenged, they're highly technical. They want to be highly technical. They want to practice their skill set and their trade craft. And if you're not pushing them to the limits, they're going to move on. So let me bring this back to you, Stephen. You know, as a leader in your division with so many different disciplines, what is your strategy for going out and getting the cream of the crop when there's so many vacancies that are out there?
Absolutely, Sean. I first and foremost, we look at certifications. We talked about certifications, and not to dismiss formal education. And I think a lot of the better universities are beginning to ensure that the certifications are part of that degree process, whether it be a graduate, a master's in computer science or computer engineering. But I frequently find when I talk to a new college graduate or an intern, and they say, and don't say Riley's last name, by the way, because we want to make sure that we're the only one that gets her. But I say, hey, I'm glad you're going to have a bachelor's in computer, science from a really good, university, CSU or School of Mines or wherever they happen to be in school. But I said, you also got to get an 8570 certification before I can hire you and apply you to an Air Force or any DoD contract. So it's a juggling act. And then you have folks who, trying to find that new talent who we use some different, career paths locally that do offer certifications. Trying to find those folks who have a great background, who have, in some cases, an engineering experience, not necessarily with an electrical engineering degree, but engineering experience, systems engineering experience, that then pursue and get an 8570 certification, for instance, Sec Plus. And then taking them and entering them into our team with someone's arm around them, so that they're not just thrown to the wolves having to do, whether it be RMF work or sitting on a systems engineering project team and trying to represent cyber to those senior engineers. And that is probably my most significant challenge. There's a lot of great talent out there. But the first thing I look for, and the first thing when my team, we have, I use the team's network first and foremost, because they know the people's work ethic in their last job. I have a fundamental philosophy. If that junior cyber person was the best wrench turner in the Army or Air Force, they're probably going to be a pretty good cyber practitioner because they have a work ethic.
Sure.
And so first and foremost, if for a junior cyber practitioner, I want to know you have a work ethic. And I want to know you are, most importantly, a good teammate. I can't stress that enough, because I'm going to take that cyber. They're not going to be alone in a room hacking some network. They're going to be on a team beside the government or beside a commercial client, engaged in cybersecurity or cyber work, or making recommendations to policy, writing policy in some cases, very, very seldomly by themselves. So I can't have somebody who doesn't know how to act in front of a client. And in front of, in very rare cases, that you're willing to have that backroom person, but usually 99% or 100% of our workforce, they have to be a good teammate first. They have to be, stellar in their work ethic, and they have to have, great cyber skills backed up by formal education and at least 1 or 2 or 3 8570 certifications. And then, just like our doctors and lawyers, we don't expect that our doctors stop learning when he finished medical school. We expect that our cyber team continues to learn. And that's another increasing challenge. The Air Force, DoD really mandated that the DoD can't pay for training for contractors. They have to come to the table trained. So that's a constant juggling act. So that ends up, that training, that increased, everybody's got to get CEUs, CEPs. You have to do that on your own time to a certain extent, unless the government, mandates your participation in some event. You have to do that on your own. So the cyber team has to constantly be engaged and constantly, being challenged to learn and develop themselves. Fortunately, our company does have tuition reimbursement, and we do include all of the recognized 8570 certifications in that. So, and I think most of the major companies out there are doing the same thing. They're not only reimbursing tuition, assistance for formal education, but also for cyber certifications to help, because they understand that the person that we hire with Sec Plus, who just left the military, has a TS clearance, they want to get their next cert next, and while they work on their masters, while they work on their bachelors in some cases. So I think the biggest thing, is, like you said, is to attract and retain, as Chris said, those top 10%ers. That's what I want. I want those guys with incredible work ethic, who are really valued teammates, who are willing to chip in and lean in when anybody has a problem. They want to help. But finding that young person who, one of our best new teammates just retired from the Army as a warrant officer with 20 years. He was a radar technician, and he's fairly new to cyber. He got his security plus. He had a top secret clearance, so he was immediately eligible to work on our contract. but he knew he was new to cyber, and we knew he was new to cyber. So putting him in the right environment, and as an SC&I, we can do that. And I think that's probably the most important thing for cyber leaders out there, is to find the right place to fit people. Not everybody's a perfect circle, trying to put into a square hole. You've got to find the right role for people, and as the team grows, that's what's fun to me, is to find that person who fits a certain area, and then maybe putting them with someone to watch out for them, help grow them and develop them as a cyber leader, because you also have to develop whatever folks are at. 'Cause nobody wants to just sit in the same chair for the next 20 years. You got to have an upward mobility plan. You got to have an area for them to grow into and areas of focus.
Yeah, especially in this career field, right? So, a great example. So you're talking about a warrant officer, 20 plus years. The soft skills are there. Those are the key things, right? Can they work with a client? Can they work on a team? Teamwork is a really big thing. So, with as many disciplines as there is, you're running a team with 38 professionals, highly technical in their own various areas. You also got to be able to collaborate and communicate with other people. So teamwork, communication, making sure that the skill sets are balanced across for not just the organization, but in some instances, you go back to that warrant officer. You get to teach them all the skills that you want them to have, him or her, right? And you don't get all the bad skills associated with what a lot of those IT people, And I'm a former IT guy. The problem is trying to solve the problem in the fastest, most expeditious way. Sometimes you take shortcuts, and now you don't have to get rid of that for a new person that's just coming into the field, but you hit off all these other areas. They've already got a clearance. They've already got a work ethic. They've got experience. They're going to get out of bed in the morning and come to work, and you don't have to worry about that. You just got to figure out, you got to keep them working, right?
Absolutely. Those challenges of being able to, I love hiring veterans when we can, when that person has the right skill sets. In some case, they understand, if you put them on a DoD contract, they understand how to act around those military professionals and senior leaders in the government. In Chris's case, he was already running a team and doing the exact work for the government that we needed to provide to a different government agency, from moving from the Missile Defense Agency over to the Air Force side. It was a direct plug and play. He already had his skills. He was already as I like to tell him and tell everybody I meet, he's the smartest guy I know. So it was an easy opportunity to get probably the best and brightest. And sometimes you have to steal from the government to help the government in another area. And it's a field. It's a fast growing field. People want to change. No one wants to do the same job for 20 years. So having the flexibility, that's one of the great things about our company, is we do so many various things. If a person gets tired of doing an RMF package for a particular Air Force, enclave, we can move them over and let them do some engineering work for a commercial client potentially. Take a break from the government side for a little bit, work on a commercial side.
Yeah, and just to speak to that, I was only on this new contract 2 weeks, and suddenly there was an incident that required a forensics analyst on our contract, and they were like, "Steven, do you know anyone that can do that?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll go deploy out there." And they were not expecting a report on their desk within 24 hours, and I was like, probably a call out to a former SES I worked with. I work at the speed of Dr. Armstrong. And so he taught me, no, I need it now, and now meant yesterday.
Right.
So when I provided them this report, they were like, "Oh, okay, we'll go ahead and get this over to OSI. Thanks." And I was like, "That's what you wanted, right?" And so that really helped out our contract. And again, just the flexibility to, okay, I'm going and doing these other things to go improve engineering, improve what's going on in their network. To surprise, you guys had an incident. Let me go sit down and tell you actually what happened. Obviously, I won't go into what that incident was, but they did get some lessons learned out of that, and they were able to go change some processes within their supply chain. But overall, you bring that experience to the team, and then you have that basically that family look. You're working with these people every day. You know who their kids are. You know who's going to college, who's in college, who's closely approaching it. all of their problems. I left a family when I left my previous job, and I got a new one. So shout out to those guys that are still out there on the front lines defending those government systems. But yeah, sometimes you just got to find that new position, and as long as they're treating that like that family environment, it's a much easier transition.
Yeah, and those families, they may be broken, but they're not forgotten, right? So in previous positions, the European Defensive Cyber Operations Team, I just noticed on LinkedIn, they just got Best Defensive Cyber Ops in the Army this year. So, and I'm looking, and there's still 2 or 3 teammates that I used to work with that are out there. So they're extended family at this point, right? Yep. And at some point, you may get an opportunity to work together again. And so that's what's great about the military culture, number one, the government culture, and then helping our clients, our customers. It's been a great discussion, this last half hour, gentlemen. Any parting thoughts for our audience?
I would say if you're coming into the industry, stay strong. Keep interviewing. Eventually, you're going to run into either myself or Steven or people like us that are looking for a skill set like you. Do not be discouraged. Find that family environment. Find that follow that cyber security passion, whatever that happens to be, because you will find a team, and definitely contribute to fixing the madness that we're dealing with.
Excellent. What do you think, Stephen?
I would add that the work that you're doing in the government or in the military is directly applicable to the commercial industry. And if we've learned nothing else on our team, on our NCO cyber team in the last year, it's that all of our commercial partners that work with our company, its different divisions, need the same cyber expertise that those folks listening are providing for the government or in the military. It's directly applicable. Don't believe it's different. I always thought it was, and what I've learned of late is it applies directly. I'm taking folks, and we're able to take teammates who are really valuable and smart and practice, hone their skills on the government side, on the military side, and apply them to commercial and sector problems, and they were immediately successful. So I tell you, practice both sides, learn both sides. I've learned a lot from you, Dr. Murray, over the last 5-6 years that we've known each other, and I know that you're a big proponent of the training that applies to industry also applies to the government and military side.
Well, thanks you, gentlemen, for both your contributions. This is Sean Murray, New Cyber Frontier. Today, our episode included Stephen Trainer and Chris Depp, both from ENSCO ASE. Thank you so much for contributing to our program today. You guys have a great day.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember, please follow and participate as New Cyber Frontier is supporting a grassroots community effort to empower the individual in the digital age. Check it out at privacyforthepeople.org. Also, make sure to join our mailing list so we can keep you informed. If you have an idea, if you have a question you would like to hear answered, or if you just want to get involved in what we're doing, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors links because they are the ones that really make this show possible. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.